Hello, everyone. It is Sunday night, and we are at Bat City Comic Professionals, which means it must be time to wind down your weekend. As always, I'm your host, Shannon, aka Small Press Shann, here to tell you about all of this week's small press and indie new releases. And of course, to tell you about all the great things we did at Bat City this week, which we had our first ever toy swap meet, which was really cool. People brought in some of their toys that they'd been collecting that they wanted to switch or sell to or trade with other collectors. And it was really cool to just see what everybody brought in and all the cool deals that they made. And we are definitely going to be doing that again. So if you are a toy collector who is looking to just mix up your collection a little bit, get prepared for that to be coming up again in the future, because I know everybody had a ton of fun, and we have so many people who are like, I didn't get to make it this time, I can't wait for next time. So we're going to need a bigger space just to have all the toy swaps happening. It's going to be great. We also had our Story Spelunkers meetup this week, which is our kids book club, and it was absolutely so much fun to be in that book club. We read a My Little Pony issue that was absolutely crazy, all about, bringing back a ghost to have a birthday party and trying to celebrate this ghost pony who really just was known for haunting people, but maybe it wasn't exactly the story that we've always heard. It was really cool, and then we all got to make our own mystery stories where we kind of Scooby-Dooed it a little bit and made up a story where it seemed like one thing was happening, but it ended up being another thing, and we got to learn about how to drop clues along the way in your story, which was a lot of fun. Thank you to all the kiddos and parents who came and participated. We actually had 3 cool dads who sat back there and read the story with us and actually participated in making comics, so super awesome too. And then thank you to all of the awesome people who we got to talk to at the Palmasola Elementary School Literacy Fair this week. It was so cool to go out there and be a part of that and get to meet all of those parents and kiddos, talk about seeing some great parents working with kids and making comics. We got to see tag team duos of parents and kids working together, and some just creating their own things. It was so much fun. So thank you to everybody out there. This week coming up, we've got our creator meetup on the 31st at 7 p.m. That's Wednesday night. So if you are a creator of any kind, an artist, a writer, even a musician, or we've had a baker show up before, if you like to create something, come meet other people who also like to create and talk to them about all the fun things that get you excited about what it is that you create. And then the Saturday we have story time. So join us at 11:30 on Saturday morning for some story times. It's going to be a ton of fun. We have so many great things coming up in the month of February. Check our Facebook events page to find out more, or find our calendar on Instagram for all the great things that are happening. Speaking of great things, we're going to try this wine, which I, fingers crossed, will think is great as well. This is called Rolling Mist. It's a Cab Sav, and it is known for rich and intense blackberry jam flavor, aromas of blackberry jam. And then notes of toasted oak and vanilla. So I'm really excited to see, because those are all things I like, but it does smell like blackberry jam.
And vanilla.
Yeah, that has all of the things. It is very rare that I feel like a wine has all of the things it says it does on the first drink. That is definitely a great description of this. Yeah, that's really easy to drink too. There's not a lot of kickback from it, and it's not overly sweet, but it does have a little bit more sweet than some of the other ones that I feel like we've drank recently. So this is, they say it's a nice velvety glass of wine, and I definitely think that they nailed it. Again, one of the best nailings of the description that I've seen. And what this was, Aldi, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you have an Aldi near you, you can actually find this at an Aldi.
I think this is the best Aldi wine.
Ooh, Matt says best Aldi wine that we've had. I feel like that's probably pretty true. This is, it's got all the things. It hits all the notes that it needs to hit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. That's a very nice wine. All right, well, we're going to slide Rolling Mist over here. Roll on over that way so we can talk about some comics. We've got a few comics to talk about this week. It's not one of those crazy weeks for sure. January is always one of those months where they don't put out near as many comics, kind of get everybody a chance to catch up after the holidays. And so, once again, it's not going to be one of those crazy big stacks, but we've got a decent amount and some great stories to talk about. So we're going to jump right in. And we're going to kick it off with New Bern, issue 14 from Image Comics. We have been following New Bern, obviously, for 14 issues now. And so if you haven't jumped in before, this is a kind of a detective story from Chip Zdarsky, but it is about a man who was a police officer and decided to become essentially a detective for the different mob families. So all the mob families pay in for him specifically to solve problems between them so that they don't ever go to one of those unnecessary gang wars. And so in the first issue, he met a girl and he is kind of training her over the course of time to be his assistant, or so she thinks. But we've recently learned that he actually might be training her to be his replacement. One of the things that has been a big part of New Bern is that everything about New Bern has always been secretive, and we've never, even as readers, never really known his backstory. And so finally, in issue 14, we actually learn how New Bern became what he is, how he got to this situation, what inspired him to even become a cop. We learn it all. And this issue was fantastic for that reason. I loved finally getting to see everything I wanted to know about him and all of the process of what is going to happen and kind of what he's hoping for as an expectation for the future. It's really nice to finally get to know this character in a real way and not evaluating him from somebody else's point of view. You know, everything has been from the new assistant's point of view. And so for us to finally get not only New Bern telling the story, but also getting this letter instead of the usual journal entries we get for our new character, getting this letter written from New Bern that fills us in on everything in between the pages was just fantastically done. As always, Chip Zdarsky's writing just really, really carries any of the street level hero, or in this case, like maybe anti-heroes, maybe a little bit of a villain. He's really good at that gray line and covering it so well, and he's doing a great job in New Bern. So if you haven't read it yet, I strongly suggest you jump in. Tenement, issue 8 from Image Comics, and this is a part of your Bone Orchard mythos, which is Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino's new world that they're creating that's kind of, you know, taking Gideon Falls mentality and spreading it out. And if you read The Passageway earlier last year, which was a hardcover collected, just a hardcover graphic novel, I should say, that was kind of the lead-in for it. And if you didn't, that's okay. You don't actually have to know anything about anything except that you like crazy stories and cool art to jump into this book. So this is all about a bunch of people who live in a apartment building, a tenement, if you will. And there's an old man who disappears, and suddenly everything in the building becomes really, really creepy and weird, and nobody can get out of it. And all of these residents find themselves trying to find the way out, only to find that they have to essentially go through the 7 circles of hell in order to escape, and each one is possibly a layer of the floor. I am being very careful because this is the most spoilery of issues. But we recently learned how this all started in the issues a couple back, but now we're actually seeing where it's going, and man, Jeff Lemire is so good at just keeping you moving and keeping that pacing going and freaking you out. And Sorrentino hides so much in his art that you're like, I feel like there's something lurking behind me while I read it. Great story. We're not done yet, so you still have time to jump in and get freaked out with everybody else. Here comes Calico, issue 8 from Sigma Comics, and this is our final issue. I do believe that I saw on their website or their Instagram that they are possibly launching like another Calico story, though, to come in the future. But this is the story of a man who is a superhero for animal rights, and in the most violent way possible. Like if you took the Punisher and you wrote a Punisher Max series, but all the Punisher cared about was avenging animals whose rights were mistreated, you would get this story. But in this issue, we actually finally get his backstory. We figure out where he came from, what his training is, and what inspired him to want to protect animals, and if you are a cat lover, you're going to cry. I spent about a good hour hugging my cat after reading this issue, and I couldn't let her go, and she was very happy about that. But just the first 10 pages of this were like, in the way that the Rocket Raccoon story in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 could have been pulled out and been like an amazing, beautiful, like, story that just changed your life. That is the first few pages of this issue. I was like, this whole thing was its own book, and it was so sad and so beautiful. And then he just kills a lot of people and beats them up in an attempt to take down the ultimate bad guy that he has been after for all of the series. And he goes through a lot of fighting with a lot of different people who have been known to be like the best fighters, and we see him kind of ganging up with some of his old team and, collecting new people along the way that could possibly help him. It turns out not all bad guys also agree with mistreating animals. The Nasty, issue 6 from Vault Comics. For you horror fans, this is a great one from the Nightfall imprint, which is Vault's horror imprint. This is the story of a group of kids who all love hanging out at a video store. Their video store is going under and they need something to save it. So they end up finding one of those cinema nasty, like terrible horror films that, once you see it, you can't unsee it and nobody should ever watch it kind of thing. And they find it and they're going to screen it and they're going to save the store with it with this huge festival. And of course, immediately after watching it, they're like, or announcing the festival, they're like, we should watch the film, and the tape gets destroyed. And so they have spent all this time making their own version of the film. The only thing is that in order to get a great bad guy, they have decided to use our main character's imaginary friend, who suddenly becomes real every time the cameras are rolling. And he is the villain from a horror movie. And things don't go the way anybody ever plans in horror movie related things, and things are getting really nasty, to say the least, in this series. And now in this issue, we find ourselves going against a woman who is anti-books and anti-videos and anti-anything that she deems inappropriate, and all these wires are getting crossed in all of the worst ways. We're going to see how this plays out. I have a feeling that the next issue is going to be very explosive for sure. The Schlub, issue 6 from Image Comics and KLC Press, which is the Kids Love Chains Press imprint of Image, run by Ryan Stegman. This is the final issue for this series. This is all about a guy who he's a schlub. He's not good. He's not good at anything. He thinks everybody hates him because he's great at them, and like they're just wrong. And he thinks he's kind and wonderful and amazing. And of course he's not. He is a terrible human being. And he ends up getting body swapped Freaky Friday style with a superhero who crashes through his dentist office. And the superhero is very also conceited and not very good at things and has a chip on his shoulder. And the two of them end up in this epic battle against a villain who is after the both of them. And we get to see whether or not people can change, and whether or not you can learn from where you've been and who you've been over the course of time, and whether or not you can mend relationships. And it's actually really cool to see, and I'm going to turn this around so you can see this wraparound cover, but it's really cool to see how what those things are that actually make that impact for these people, and who actually is the ones that change and who are the ones who don't, because not everybody is always going to take the lesson and learn something from it. When you have a character like that, you're not always going to get everybody having the moral hit them and understand it. And so I like to see how that actually played out with that. Midnight Western Theater Witch Trial, issue 5 from Scout Comics. And this is the end of this. The theme of this week is that a lot of books are ending. This is the end of this story as well, or the end of this beginning, I should say, because once you finish this, you should actually read the original Midnight Western Theater series, which is the prequel to. I actually think this is a more developed and more exciting story, like, to kick off with. So if you are like, oh, I have to be a purist and read Midnight Western Theater first, I actually think that you should read this one first. But this is about a girl named Ortanasia who was given over essentially to demons as a child, and a witch comes and saves her and ends up raising her and is trying to tell her what she needs to do in life and where she needs to go. And of course she has that "you're not my real mom" kind of moment as she's growing up, and she wants to not have anything to do with this witch, and she ends up falling in with this demon who's terrible, and we get to see this battle between this witch and this demon and this immortal young girl who may be somebody who's supposed to bring about death and destruction for the entire world. And in this issue, we get to see the culmination of everything that she's learned and everything that she's become really play into what turns her into the person that we see, years and years and years later when we read Midnight Western Theater. It's fantastic. This is such a spoilery issue because it is the last one, so I don't want to tell you too much more, but you should definitely check it out. Again, start here if you haven't read Midnight Western Theater. It's a great series, but this is really such a good launching point for that series because it is the prequel. Also, I just really want her outfit all the time. Like, that's the character I want to cosplay is Ortanasia because she has such a cool look. Disney Villains Hades, issue 6 from Dynamite and their Disney imprint. This is the last issue for Hades as well. I'm sorry, I said 6. This is 5. But this is the last issue of Hades as well. We are about to, what is announced at the back of this book, get a Hercules series. So we're kind of switching from just doing the villains to doing a lot of the heroes on the Disney imprint. And I'm excited to see that. But this has been the story of Hades trying to get the Golden Fleece so that he can essentially change all the gods, as you just saw on that page, into a bunch of things that he can control. And they're, of course, the most ridiculous things possible. But he has been working so hard to get it, and he has betrayed his team at every turn. And now he is up at brunch with the gods and is trying to destroy them all. And he realizes he kind of liked the people he betrayed. They were actually kind of cool. And maybe he shouldn't have betrayed them all. And maybe he should get them to come back and be his friends. But you know what? He's betrayed them all. And so nobody really wants to be his friend anymore. And we get the epic showdown between not just Hades and the gods, but Hades and his team that he has consistently turned his back on. If you like the Hercules movie, this is so very close to just being something you can read in that Hades dialogue. It feels like it's a part of the story. It is so in line with that movie, and I know that is a fan favorite Disney movie, so you should grab this comic if you are one of those fans, because it is so good for Hercules fans. And apparently then you subscribe to Hercules because that's coming up soon. I think Lilo and Stitch is the first of the non-villain ones to come out, and then it's Hercules because that was just announced. So. And we still have Cruella de Vil going on if you're a villain fan and you want to keep with that. Met Cadets, issue 5 from Boom Studios. This is, for those of you who are watching the Met Cadet U show on Netflix or have watched it before, this is in that same universe. You can see the little Netflix logo on there. But this is the story of a bunch of cadets who are part of an army that uses mech to go out and save the world. And they have all been trained because they're the kids who the mechs respond to. And in this world, it's mostly children or teenagers that really get the opportunity to be these mech soldiers. And these kids have learned that if they're going to be the ones who have to risk their lives, then they're going to be the ones that make the decisions. And as things get really dangerous and the Earth is getting more and more attention from the alien races, and we might have an alien race coming to bring us to war right now, these kids are finding out that the military that they are a part of doesn't have their best interest at heart. And we get to see a little bit more than that than they do, but we're starting to see them realize it and wake up to that issue, and we're going to see them really just, I think, go for it on their own as we get to the next issue. And I'm really excited because we've had like the rebellious group, which you were like, ooh, I wouldn't expect them to be the rebellion. But as things are escalating, we're going to need everybody to rebel if we're going to make a difference. Strakovy, issue 5 from Scout Comics. This is the end for Strakovy as well. We have been following this book for a minute, it's one of those that the subtitle actually tells us more for the story than anything, which is the Slav with no remorse. And this is about a guy who was a superhero, and in the very first issue, he actually takes out a school bus and doesn't even know why he does it, but ends up harming all of these kids and doing all of these wrong things. And over the course of the first couple issues, we're like, wow, this guy's kind of terrible. No wonder they call him, the one with no remorse, because he's doing all of these bad things. But we learned in issue 3 that he is not responsible for those bad things in near the way that we thought he was. There is some big twists and turns, and there is a woman who had been a part of their group and had some very bad things happen to her, and she felt like the group didn't respond in the way that they should. And so the second half of this book is us learning how she has been trying to take all of them out in a long, extended plan that she's had for about a decade. And it just, everybody in this book just, at every turn, they try to make, the ones that try to make the right decisions end up making the falling right into her plan and making the worst decisions. And you want to believe that somebody is going to save the day, and this does not play out necessarily in the way that you think it's going to, and yet it plays out in the only way that it kind of could, which works so well for this story. And I always like when you can make a character's moniker or a subtitle work in such a dual meaning, and they nailed it with that in this. And I thought that was so great, because what it means at the beginning and what it means at the end are two totally different things, and yet perfectly done on both ends of that spectrum. So they really wrapped this up in a way that surprised me, and I was really excited to see what they did at the end there. Banshees, issue 5 from Scout Comics, also ending this week. Man, I made a list of I marked next to all the books that were ending this week, and it is almost all of them. So this was a big wrap-up week for everybody. But if you have not read Banshees yet, this is the story of a girl who enters into a college and finds out essentially that her dorm room is haunted by all of these people who, these other women who lived in that dorm and were murdered. And she is determined to figure out what happens. And in the very first issue, while she is trying to do that, she also ends up murdered. And now she is a part of this group of girls that are all ghosts who are trying to solve this murder. And because of her recentness to it, they kind of still remember enough information. And so over the last few issues, we have gone on this mission and figured we could kind of figure out maybe bits and pieces of what was going on. But when a friend gets put in danger, the girls really elevate how much they look into it, and we actually solve our case in this issue. And man, these girls, they went for it really hard, and you back them 100% on all of the stuff that they go for, because they are really making it this count when they go after these people. And if you haven't read it yet, you should definitely read it. And I think this is one of those, for women who are I've been in this situation, you're going to be I'm with you, girls, let's go. Hexagon Bridge, issue 5 from Image Comics, possibly the end of this. It could be a really perfect open ending. There could be some more issues to come. Don't quote me on it either way. I didn't look to see because I didn't want to spoil it if there was another issue. But if you don't know Hexagon Bridge, this is the story of a bridge that we have determined, have discovered, that can take us between parallel universes. And 2 people go in to map it out in the very first issue, and they never return. And those 2 people have a daughter, and that daughter has the extra special gift of being able to see into this parallel universe and map it out. And her grandfather happens to be the person funding these missions. And so he ends up training her to work with an AI so that in the future she can send this AI into this dimensional bridge, and he can hopefully find her parents and a way to make this bridge work. In this issue, we see that the AI can't do it alone, and so they're going to have to figure out a new plan. And we also learn what exactly is going on in this parallel universe and what the actual plan was behind all of it. And like I said, it could be a really perfect open-ended book. We could have more to go, which could lead us to even more great story. I don't know. We're going to find out. But if this was the end, I love it. I kind of wanted to end here because I'm like, ooh, way to like leave me on just enough of a cliffhanger. I don't know. We'll find out. But again, great issue so far. Junior Baker, Righteous Baker, issue 5 from Image Comics, also ending this week. And what a strange book to get to a really beautiful point. If you've been reading Junior Baker, you know that you get like really eccentric art, and we've been following a guy who believes that he's like the journalist that has to uncover all of like the craziest mysteries. You know, oh, was that a cult over there? Was that aliens? Like, are there actually aliens? And he's been going through a lot. Like in real life, his partner is pregnant and she's like, are you going to get this together? Are we going to have this baby? Are we going to, you know, have a good life together? And he kind of seems to throw himself further and further into this existential crisis that he is having. The more she puts pressure on him to fix this relationship and to be there for the baby. And so he has gone off to investigate something. And the last half of the last issue and all of this one, he has just been in his own mind space, in this existential reality, wherever he may be. We're not really sure what's real and what isn't, honestly, as readers. But at the same time, we find out in this issue that his partner has gone into emergency labor and she is having the baby while he is dealing with all of this. And the second half of the book kind of starts to bring his existential reality and all of his dread together with what is happening in the real world. And the ending of it was absolutely beautiful and completely and totally changed what I thought about everything that he had went through the whole time. But yeah, so I love that the tagline, the quote that they used on the back of the book was something had to be settled here. Some fundamental questions had to finally be answered. And I'm like, as a reader, I feel like that's exactly what you did. You took me on this really crazy journey. And then by the end, you were like, okay, let's break this down. By the way, this is just about life. And Project Cryptid, issue 5 from Ahoy Comics. If you haven't read Project Cryptid yet, you may not know that this is an anthology series about all of your favorite cryptids, or some you've never heard of before. And if you don't know what a cryptid is, that is one of those weird animals that may or may not be mythological in our society. Urban legend animals, I guess. Yeah, that's good. So, you know, things like the Loch Ness Monster, Sasquatch, Mothman, the Chupacabra, and we've seen a lot of those. And in this one, we actually have 3 stories. One is supposed to be of the Hodag, and we are following a group of people who go on a tour to see if the Hodag is real. You know, they're at the gift shop for it, and of course you have the guy that's like, I just think you're trying to sell me stuff at the gift shop, and all of this stuff is made up. And we see how that plays out for them. And then in the second story, we go to Cryptids Anonymous, and we are at a monthly meeting where they're talking about all the things that they need to do, and Sasquatch and the Yeti are kind of at odds and fighting with each other because one is president and one is vice president, and they think, you know, second in command isn't as cool. And we get the Blob in here to give us some good emotional support and really just bring the team back together. And then our last story is for ultra terrestrials, and we get to see how, you know, not just aliens, but specifically like these ultra terrestrials. And it's, you know, this guy who's like, I found the perfect woman because she's an alien, and that doesn't really necessarily play out the way that he wants it to. They're really just fun stories. You find yourself laughing through the whole thing. You know, it's not trying to show, it's sometimes you'll get the story that's just like, this is what that creature is, this is the story behind it. And sometimes you get a series of stories like these where all of them are just fun and games and laughter, and they just kind of bring those characters in. And I love it that you also get the case file each time that kind of tell you a little bit more about each character. I am going to take a drink of Rolling Mist really fast. Rolling mist, like the mist that surrounds all of those cryptids that you can't see through. If you have a favorite cryptid, I would totally like to know. Like, if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, like 10 years from now. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. I just want you to comment on it and tell me what your favorite cryptid is, because I have learned that almost everybody I've ever met has a favorite cryptid. And so it's kind of fascinating. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I like the one that's, from where I'm from. But a lot of people like different ones. Like, I really like Will-o'-the-Wisp. I really want to believe that there's like these little tiny fairy light things that actually bring about like some magical little creature. I really like that. Obviously, I really like the Loch Ness Monster. And I was actually kind of like, oh, I wish that there was more in about Nessie. Like, I want Nessie to have all the stories. But if you have a favorite cryptid, let us know, because it's always cool. A couple weeks ago, we did our Batastic Awards, which was the best of Indian small press comics for 2023. And our best cover artist for the year was Jenny Frison, and I just want to remind you why with this incredible Dracula cover. This is issue 4, the final issue of the Universal Monsters Dracula series from James Tynion. They are all going to be 4-part minis. I really think that they should have been 12-part series, because I just want them to go on for ever. But this is issue 4, and I love that Jenny Frison cover. If you've been reading this, you know that this actually kind of doesn't feature Dracula all that much. He's kind of a shadowy creature that we talk about and around, but we don't necessarily see a lot of. And we do focus a little bit more on Renfield. I just really like this 2-page spread title page. We focus a lot on Renfield and his experience of like wanting to become a vampire and wanting Dracula to change him, and kind of knowing more about Dracula than anybody else. And we focus on Mina getting that first experience, that first taste, if you will, of Dracula, and her wanting to become part of him and become somebody that is with him in that capacity. And her dad and Dr. Seward and Van Helsing have been teaming up recently to kind of figure out like what they need to do to stop Dracula, and what they may need to do to keep Mina from him. And we see that kind of play out in this issue. We see the conversations around that. We see where this is leading, and you get these like crazy Martin Simmons art pieces that are kind of, like I said, the Dracula in the shadow. Like, you almost have to Where's Waldo it and kind of use that artist's interpretation to figure out what it is that James Tynion and Martin Simmons want us to catch in that story, because they do kind of shadow it so much. It's like, okay, well, we're following these people and we're seeing their reaction to Dracula, but like, what did Dracula actually do? You have to read the art to get the full story. And I love that. I love that way to use the medium. And James Tynion and Martin Simmons, when they work together, are very, very good at that. And so if you didn't read it, all 4 issues are out, so you can jump in. And if you're like, Dracula is not my universal monster, I'm really into some of the other ones, guess what? More are coming. They just announced that Ron B will be doing Creature from the Black Lagoon, and that will be coming out next. And I'm probably going to scream with delight when it gets here, because it's going to be so good. Having the Swamp Thing writer, who also writes these great like godly stories, like gods coming to Earth, write Creature from the Black Lagoon, it's going to be so good. I can't wait. Slow Burn, issue 4 from Boom Studios. This is the story of a girl whose dad is a mobster of some sort, and we got a little bit of his backstory in the last issue, but she has been trying to get away from him and the life that he created for her for so long, and she finally did, but she stole this magical, possibly violin in the process, and she has been on the run, and she's teamed up with this other girl, and we have kind of learned very little and yet a whole ton about all of these people as it unfolds. I love that there's never been like a big exposition jump for this book. So you're kind of like, I think I know what's going on. I got to keep up. Like, I'm trying to solve the problems before they do. And we're kind of just getting everybody's bits and pieces. But this girl has been trying to get away from this family and trying to get away from everything connected to it. And in this issue, she finally starts to take some stands. And with only 1 issue left to go, I'm really curious to see, the slow burn and how fast it's going to actually take off when she comes face to face with all of the decisions she has to make. And honestly, I really want to know, is somebody going to play this violin? Is that going to happen? I'm so curious what would happen if they did. Like, is it a myth and a legend and that's made this violin just really expensive and everybody's going for it? Or is there something that could actually happen? And like, is she going to play it and everybody's face is going to melt off and the whole book is going to be for naught? I don't know. I just want to find out. And I guess we will in the next issue. Splattered Western. This is Resurrection Hill, which is issue 4 of 4, but also a one-shot. So how does that work? I get asked this question probably every time this book comes out. So the Splattered Western is essentially the anthology name in the way that Creepshow exists, and then you get a different story or 2 or 3 in every volume of Creepshow. Splatter Western is the anthology title. So there's 4 issues in that anthology, each one a different Western that has a horrific, like a horror story that also has a lot of violence to it. And so you get that horror violence in a Western setting in a different story each time. So you could pick up this book and not know anything about the other 3. You're not going to be lost in the same way that you could pick up Ice Cream Man or Creepshow or any of those other anthologies. And in this Resurrection Hill, we're essentially getting the Pet Sematary Old West movie kind of playing out. We have the story of a man who marries a woman who already has a son. And while she is away, something happens and the son is killed. And everybody's like, oh, she never should have married that man. It's his fault. He brings violence to everywhere he goes. And he's like, I love this kid. Like, he's my own son. I said I would, and I do. So I've got to do something to bring him back. And he remembers the story of Resurrection Hill, where it's like, oh, you can go kind of like Pet Sematary. You can take your dead loved one up there, and a witch in the woods will save this kid or whoever your loved one is. And, if you've seen Pet Sematary, you know that doesn't truly ever work out the way you're told. But he takes on the quest to try to save his son and bring him back. And you get some good horror and you get some good violence and you get a nice splatter Western to go with it. Honestly, this is one of the most in detailed stories of the splatter Westerns, and you're kind of rooting for him, but Pet Sematary, you can't bury somebody and bring them back to life and they'll be the same, Lazarus pits never work kind of situation. And so you want to see it play out, but you're also kind of rooting for whatever the dark Lazarus pit kind of moment is going to be. And you get all of it. So check it out. It's a great one shot. You should definitely read it. Bad Omens Concrete Jungle issue 4 from Sumerian. This is also the end. So I told you, they're all wrapping up this week. This is from Bad Omens, the band, and kind of goes in line with a story that they have created for their music and for, this comic. But this is essentially the Bad Omens team is a group of people who are trying to protect their town and their community. And part of what lies in their community is an art museum. In the very first part, there is, an art museum robbery and a standoff that comes out with that. And so over the course of the last 4 issues, they have been in this battle. And now this is, in issue 3, we're supposed to believe that something may have happened and maybe they're not going to face this battle. But of course, we've got an issue 4. So here's our major standoff. And do they win? Do they lose? Is it open for interpretation for a future? All of the above, none of the above. I don't know. You have to read it to find out. But if you are a fan of Bad Omens, they do have a section in every issue where they use lyrics from the song as the dialogue for the story, which is really cool because a lot of the band comics don't do that. And so it's always fun when they do to kind of see how they work it into there. But if you're a fan, check it out. And I know that Bad Omens just did a collab with Poppy on a song, so I'm assuming that we'll get some Sumerian sequel to Bad Omens, and maybe Poppy's characters from her graphic novels will show up in the comics. We'll see. I don't know. I don't work at Sumerian. I'm just making up things that I want to see happen in comic books. A Blade in the Dark issue 4 from Scout Comics. This is one that I absolutely love. The artwork and this rich story that it's building out of it. And it is the story of a boy who finds himself the lone survivor after his village is killed and slaughtered because they are the protectors of this magical sword. And all he knows is that somebody has taken his sister, and she is now aligned with this evil god, and she has the sword that can kill all gods and, bring destruction to the world. And all he has is the sheath, and until the two are combined, there can't be this balance in the world. And he is on this quest to find his sister and to save her and to also get the sword back and destroy these evil gods. And he has faced off against a lot of people, and things have gotten really, really crazy. He's had to face a lot of gods. He's had to face a lot of monsters. And in this issue, he's going to have to face some things that he doesn't want to have to go against. And it's such a cool looking book. It's such a cool story. Is the next issue going to be the end? Probably. Do I wish that they would just keep going and let him continue to battle on and face things? Yes. But the thing that they did at the end of this issue, I'm so curious to see how we're going to play that out, because there is a nice twist for the whole thing that comes in this issue, and I'm really excited to see how that goes. So if you haven't read it yet, you kind of get your Ronin story, but you're getting a horror like mix on top of it in the way that these like monsters and creatures are coming. So it's like a very, very dark Ronin story, for sure. This week we had Acolyte issue 3 and 4 from Concrete Comics out. And so I'm not going to tell you what happened in 3 because we're going to jump straight to 4, but you can get both issues at the same time when you come to get it. But this is the story of Acolyte, who is a new superhero, and he has found out that he is essentially the son of a supreme, and he has all of these powers. And so he went and trained and then came back to Earth and has decided he's going to protect it. And he has been battling against people from other planets and things like that. And so these children of chaos have shown up, and he has to stop them. But while he's trying to do that, of course, destruction happens on the Earth. And so now there's a whole uprising of people who are like, we have to stop Acolyte because he's bringing all the pain. Like, he's actually the only thing we've ever seen. We don't know any of these bad guys he says he's fighting. We only see him, and everywhere he goes, there's destruction. So maybe we should just stop him. He's like, I don't have time for this. I have to actually legitimately save the world. So he's teamed up with somebody who's doing a little bit of the boots on the ground situation, and so he's gonna have to leave him in charge while he goes out to space and try to figure out what's going on to save the world. And we're gonna see probably some big battles when we get to issue 4, but I do like having him have a buddy that he can team up with who kind of has all the weapons, very much of a Deathstroke Taskmaster kind of feel for that guy. So Holy Roller, issue 3 from Image Comics, and Rick Remender working with Andy Samberg, who you probably know from Saturday Night Live and Lonely Island and so many other hilarious things. But I always tell people that issue 3 is your turning point in a story, and once again, they have proven that to be so true. This is the story of a guy who grew up in a town that was already, very hateful and not cool. And so he left his parents behind because he was tired of feeling like he was a loser in the town. Joined the military, then joined like the Peace Corps. He's been out on a boat for a long time. Well, he comes home because he learns that his father might not make it. And he comes back to see his dad and finds out that the whole town has just gone completely to the wayside, and a lot of racist people are now in charge of the town, and they are just taking out the small people and the people of different races that they don't agree with, and the poor people, and just anything that they can. So it's like kids are in danger, different races are in danger, people of different economic backgrounds, and he's like, you know what, this isn't okay. Like, you're bullies, and I hate bullies, and I'm going to take you all out. And he uses the only weapon he can find, which is a bowling ball, and now he's kind of become a bowling ball vigilante. And in this issue, we actually start to see some of that be more than just watching him beat up people with a bowling ball. We actually get to see him start to process what it all means for him and why it matters and why he needs to stand up against these people. And so we start to see that heart that is going to come into play in a really big way in this book. And I can't wait to see where we go next with this, because he's taken down some people who, sometimes they just deserve to get hit with a bowling ball. And we're going to see how that plays out. Empath, issue 3 from Black Box Comics. This is the story of a guy who has the ability to siphon people's emotions off of them and kind of absorb them and use them as his own power. And so he, tries to do that when people are in a really bad, angry state, when he's fighting them, take their anger away and use that rage as a power for himself. We learned in issue 2 that it's taking a really big toll on him, but he's not going to stop, because he's found out that there is a really bad man who is taking advantage of a lot of women, and he's not okay with that. And so he's going after him personally, and he is going to sacrifice himself if that's what it takes. And he goes after a lot of people to get to him in this issue, and we get to see how that plays out for him and just what's going on with that. But the other thing that's going on at the same time is that his sister is very sick and in the hospital, and he wishes he could take her pain and her feelings away, but she is not somebody he can do that to, and he may not be able to save her. And it's like, all this work that I'm doing to save the rest of the world, I might not be able to save the one person that matters to me. And some choices are made in this book, in this issue, that are really going to be a huge catalyst for what changes he makes and what connections he destroys in the next few issues. Lotus Land, issue 3 from Boom Studios. This is the story of a world where we have created essentially the perfect utopia, and we did it through using AI to build the world that we wanted. But the guy who was kind of the muscle and helped with the mind behind all of it, and the woman who was the mind behind all of it, are at they got married, now they're separated, and they have a child who is somehow connected very much so into what is going on with this world, and he doesn't want that child to be stuck in that. And so he has hidden the child out in the woods, and in the very first issue, something goes wrong with the system back in the city, and he is forced to go back into that system. And while he is investigating all of this, he has left the son at home alone. And over the last issue, he's done all this detective work, and we've kind of just focused on that. We've seen all these connections. We've seen, what is going wrong with it. But in this issue, we finally see the backstory of where all these people come from and why they're so connected to this world and what's going on. But we also start to see what the son is dealing with on his own back in the cabin, and we are definitely going to see a lot of what we've built crumble as the next issue hits us really hard. But if you are looking for a good sci-fi thriller, Lotus Land is definitely going to be the one to pick up right now, because you get action, you get emotion, and you get that sci-fi futuristic world. Mundus Tenebras, which I always say wrong, from Blood Moon Comics, issue 3. This is the end of this as well. This could have been way longer, because I really enjoyed seeing what this series was doing, but this is the story of a priest who is doing an exorcism on a young girl, and she doesn't make it. And he doesn't know why, and he's very upset about it, and everybody in the church just kind of brushes it under the rug. And he goes to a bar in issue 1 to kind of drown his sorrows, which is something he's never done since he's become a priest. And he finds a woman in there who basically says, everything that you believe is a lie. Not that religion isn't real, not that God isn't real, but the way they've taught you and the things that you're doing, that's what's the problem. And you need to come with me. And she exposes him to what is actually going on, which is a lot of really crazy things going in and out of the church. With angels and demons and who's on what side and everything that's happening. And so she's like, are you going to let this keep happening, or are you going to do something about it? And in this issue 3, we finally see them start to have to make some choices, and I don't want to spoil what those choices are, so I'm not going to show you the second half of the book. But if you want to see, how that plays out for him in his final act, you should definitely check out this series. 3 issues. It's super easy read. Dead Detective issue 2 from Black Box Comics. This one gets deeper and deeper. Like the one issue 1 could have almost been a one-shot because it had so much story to it, but we brought even more as we open up in issue 2. So this is the story of a police officer who finds himself on a case in issue 1 that doesn't necessarily go the way he is planning for it to. And as he goes through this tunnel and is trying to figure out what's going on with this like cult-like experience that he's investigating, he finds himself on the other side of the town and now suddenly in a different place, and everybody in this place is dead and he doesn't know what's going on and he's freaking out, and he is trying to call the station for some help, and it's a different chief in a different town, and so they end up sending his former partner who has passed away. And he's like, how am I with you? Where are we at? What is going on? And he starts trying to explain to him that they're in the afterlife and he may or may not be dead. And he's like, I don't think I'm dead. And he's like, well, I don't know how you got here if you did. And then we find out that there's some demons and there's some underlords literally who are coming for people. And these battles are getting big and things are not looking good for anybody in this detective realm of the dead. I don't know if anybody's going to make it out of that book alive. Or if anybody in that book is alive, I guess I should say. Crashdown, issue 1 from Whatnot Publishing and Comic Tom. So if you are someone who keeps up with what the hot books of the week are and things like that, you may know Comic Tom, a.k.a. Tom Garcia, who is one of the bloggers. This is his first comic that he has written. And this is him and Ryan Sargent writing it with Ben Templesmith on art. And it is the story of a world where we're in our future and we need to find a new place that we can call home. And so we have trained a bunch of people to go up, and basically they are going to be the first wave of people to touch down on this new planet that we are considering our own. The rest of us are all going into cryo freeze also on this ship while this is happening. So they're going to put most people into a full cryo sleep, and the people who will be going out get into a minor one so that they can wake up. Well, the cryo freeze goes completely wrong, and one of the people who is supposed to be going on this mission wakes up to find himself very, very old and unable to do it. And we find out that lots of other people are also having, I'm going to show you how crazy that looks, are also having these problems when they're awakening. There's stuff going wrong all over the ship on the cryo freeze. Not only that, but the planet that they chose, not actually safe. And so they still send the people down there to check it out, and it does not go the way anybody is expecting. And we have set up a very big world of a lot of problems for the future with this series. So if you haven't checked it out yet, grab it. Savage Pulp, issue, possibly a one-shot. No, it is issue 1 from Blood Moon Comics. I had to think about it. I was like, listen, I might have set up for more. But this is for those of you who are fans of pulp comics and kind of want some more of that, classic creepy horror. You're going to get a little bit of that with the sci-fi twist. And so we follow a guy who gets this random piece of fabric and is like, that's really cool. What's that design? It kind of looks like a little like bug or a bird or something. And then this weird blobby thing comes chasing at him. And he's like, what is this? And he tries to fight it off. And it just gets bigger and bigger and more of them come. And so he goes on this like high-speed chase through the city, essentially trying to get rid of all of these alien creature type things that just start to explode and come around him. And there's so much action and so much crazy, weird sci-fi moments. And I'm trying to see, yes, they're like, do you want to see how this story unfolds? Like, stay tuned. So we will get some more, but everything in the back half of this book, it's super crazy, and I don't want to ruin all of it because it's just about, like, where do these aliens come from? Where are they going? Who do they possess? Do they get out of it? All kinds of crazy stuff happens. You're going to have to read it, but again, if you like pulpy alien horror kind of thing, this is definitely going to be the book for you. Oh, I still forgot it. I forgot my Eddie book. Can you grab me a copy of Eddie off the shelf while we're talking about Blood Moon? And I'll take another drink of my wine while you do that. It's on the Blood Moon section, yeah. While he's doing that, I'm drinking Rolling Mist, which is a cab sav. And it's very blackberry meets vanilla Honestly, I'm really getting a lot of the vanilla, like the more and more that I drink it, the more and more I feel like, oh, sorry.
I had it on the bottle.
Sorry, I forgot you.
No worries. Sorry, everybody.
Sorry, I got really excited. All right. So, check that out for sure. It's really good. Edie.
I think.
Is it Edie?
I had a lot of friends growing up that was spelled that way, and they were
It's probably, it's a girl's name. So.
Yeah, they were
it's probably Edie. Yeah. This is also a number one, Edie #1 from Blood Moon Comics. And if you are a fan of The Blob, you are going to want to read this book because this is going to be a big callback to that. I'm going to open it up right here. So this follows Edie, who is a young girl, like teenage, college-age girl. And she is, I think she's in high school. She wants really hard to have, like, the hot guy in school like her and to have a normal life. But she kind of doesn't. Like, she's got the nerdy friend, her and the nerdy friend, like, who are just, they're not uncool, but they're not cool, and they're kind of on the fringe of everything. And one day, the guy that she likes really a lot asks her to come to a party, and she's like, this is going to be so great. I never trust that in stories or in real life. Honestly. And so she and her friends end up sneaking out and going to this party. And some things happen, and it really, really doesn't go the way she wants it to. And I can honestly say it really, really doesn't go the way anybody wants it to. And like I said, the creator said this is their way of telling the story of the Blob in their own, like, you know, their own story. But we got an alien, we got some consumption, we got some people who are hungry, and we're going to get some blobbiness coming on. So if you have not read this yet, this is a great Blood Moon title this week's pickup. And thank you so much. We were actually able to get a copy of this in advance, which I loved. It was so great. I got to read it early. And then I got to share it with everybody else this week. So thanks for sending that to us. We love it. Thanks so much. And pick it up and subscribe to it. Again, if you're fans of The Blob, you got to get that book at your store.
If you like horror, Blood Moon.
If you like horror, you should be reading Blood Moon, period. Like, end of story. Especially because they get so much of the pulpy stuff and so much of those classic, like, horror movie feelings. Like, if you're a fan of classic horror and you're not reading Blood Moon, what are you doing? Ask your local comic shop if they can order Blood Moon comics for you, because you're going to want to do it. And if they can't, you know, you got to find it, because it's Blood Moon and it's great for horror and it's great for classic horror pulpy fans. Read Blood Moon. Quested. This is Volume 2, Issue 1 from Massive Comics. If you are a fan of I Hate Fairyland, this is going to be the Massive comic for you. This is the story of a guy who has been just the worst. He's kind of like our Gert of the story for the I Hate Fairyland fans. This is Jinx, and he's a quester, and he's made a lot of really bad choices. And at the end of Volume 1, he kind of betrays all his friends and goes to the underworld to get his revenge, get the things he wants back, get all of these things. We get a nice recap at the beginning of this story, though. So even if you didn't read Volume 1, there's the whole segment of this that's like, hey, we're going to tell you everything that happened. Meanwhile, his friends who are like, do we hate him? Do we want to work with him? They're on their own quest up on the regular surface world, because somebody that they saved who they thought was a princess was actually, turns out, a djinn who was locked up and forced to grant wishes to a king, and now the king is in trouble, and she's like, I know that he's terrible and he mistreated me, but he's also the only father I've ever known, so can I get y'all to come help me? And so they're on a quest to save this king that they hate. Well, so is Jinx in the underworld, essentially. Not only is he trying to save a king that he hates, but he's also trying to find his father, who he really, really hates, and see what he's up to. So, again, if you're fans of I Hate Fairyland, this is very in line with the art style and the character development and the way the characters interact with each other, but gives you a little bit of that classic D&D, like, we make bad choices and it impacts our story. You get a lot of that in the same way as well. So, check it out.
Paul Catalanato is in the chat. from Edie.
Yes, thank
And
you.
It says, thanks for pushing Edie, appreciates it, and hope you enjoy the rest of the series.
I am so looking forward to it. And again, thanks for hooking us up with this comic.
And is it Edie or Eddie, Paul?
Oh,
If you
yeah.
can phonetically put it in so that we can talk about it proper in the story.
Yeah, is it Edie or Eddie? Because it only has one D, so it's probably Edie. But
Right.
I don't know why. I was just like, Eddie would be like such a cool name for a girl. So
Yeah, it's a cute name.
yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's Edie. I'm sure you are totally correct. All right, we've got Justice Ducks.
Edie.
It is Edie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm so excited. It's so good, everybody. Justice Ducks, issue 1. This is a spinoff of Darkwing Duck, which is part of the Disney imprint at Dynamite. If you watch Darkwing Duck, you know that the Justice Ducks is essentially his version of the Justice League to Darkwing's Batman. And if you didn't, and you've been reading the Darkwing Duck series, you still have gotten that great input because we have built up the Justice Ducks over the last few Darkwing Duck issues. And Darkwing does not want to be a part of the Justice Ducks because Darkwing doesn't know how to play well with others. But he is Batman, so he still shows up and interacts with them when he will. And Stegma is trying to just raise some money for fish that are needing homes and food. And a giant alien shows up. And I love this because look at the villains that come in from the alien world. Look at this Duck Barda. Let's just call it what it is. That's Duck Big Barda, and she's kind of my favorite thing to ever happen. Yeah, I love her so much.
Duck Thanos?
And yeah, it's like a duck of like all of your like villains from different things. And so they're like, oh, we have to fight these people. And so our Justice Ducks, which are like Roboduck and Stegma and Morgana and oh my god, what's the name of the girl that's Neptuna and Darkwing and Launchpad all come out to fight these people, only to find out that they're actually just looking for some help getting some ice cream. And we learn why as the story unfolds and how we're going to provide for that. As always, Darkwing is filled with a bunch of jokes and is not a team player, but he does have his priorities in line in a completely different way, and you get that heartfelt moment at the end. Every issue has felt perfectly like you're watching a Darkwing Duck show. This is going to be a spin-off series that is actually just going to be your Justice League series within your Darkwing universe. So if you are reading Darkwing Duck, you can add on this to your subscription and like start picking this up because Darkwing Duck now has the Justice Ducks. He's going to make his appearances because, you know, no matter how many times he says, I don't work with the team, he always does, just like Batman. So we'll see him in these issues as well. But if you want some more Darkwing in your life, this is the way to get it. Also launching this week is Ghost Machine issue 1 from Ghost Machine, which is the new imprint essentially at Image Comics from the creative minds of Jeff Johns. And oh my gosh, does it actually have just a list? Yes, I'm going to read this to you. Jeff Johns, Jason Fablet, Gary Frank, Brian Hitch, Lamont McGee, Francis Manipul, Brad Meltzer, Ivan Reese, Peter Snegberg, Peter Tomasi, Mataj Jute, and Brad Anderson. There are so many people that are a part of this. It's a huge new imprint for these guys. And it is starting out with, using Geiger as Jeff Johns' launching point for his stories in here. So if you've read Jeff Johns' Geiger, if you've read Junkyard Joe, they are the catalyst for the beginning story in this. You can jump in right here. And then we are going to get the story of this immortal Redcoat, who is somebody that's been hinted at, essentially, and he's going to come in and he's going to be connected to that Geiger universe. So our first two little mini stories in here both come from Jeff Johns in the Geiger universe. And then we learn that it's actually called, like, the Unnamed. And there's going to be all of these heroes throughout time, and so he's going to tell all of these different stories and bring it into that world that you've seen before. So this is his timeline for all of that and where each person goes. And then you get all these character cards. So if you want to know about the characters you've already met and the ones you're going to meet, you do get all of that in the book as well. Then you get a different set of stories. The next one also being a Jeff Johns story for his other universe, which is Rook. which is the story of these people who have the power to wear these helmets essentially that help them communicate with animals. And so each one of them has a different animal ability that they are able to harness and the animals that they can work with. And so you're going to see them, and their big thing is they're trying to find Direwolf, which she looks super cool. I'm going to show you her. I really just want to see what she's up to when her story launches, because she seems like she's going to be the coolest of the characters in that book. And I've had a lot of people this week who picked up Ghost Machine who were like, I'm in for Rook, for Direwolf. So, we're also going to get a lot of all ages stories that are going to be family focused. And of course, those come to us from Peter Tomasi, who you may know from Super Sons and Superman, and so many amazing. All the happy like family stories. And so he has one called The Rockefellers, which is about a family who all have superpowers, and they're trying to kind of like live their life like as normally as possible. But the story that he tells is so cute, because they're like, oh, all right, family, we have to go out and spend the day doing something normal and family-like, and we're not going to do any of these technology things, and we're just going to have a nice night of dinner. And then they think that somebody's chasing them, so they all start like going crazy, like shooting guns and like firing off at people and trying to outrun them. And then what ends up happening is actually hilarious. And then the other story that Tomasi adds in here is about a girl who is a demon and a boy who is an angel, and they at birth were switched to live. The angel kid is forced to be raised by a demon family, and she is raised by an angel family, because they think that maybe they can keep essentially the balance in the world if these two don't have, if angels and demons can learn to understand each other. And they're two kids, and they both play baseball, and you get this really cute baseball story about the two of them. I'm so in. That is my favorite of the stories. It's so Mr. Miracle, but in the cutest way possible. And so that one's called Hornsby and Halo. And Peter Tomasi writes the best kid superhero kind of superheroes. And I love how much heart and happiness he puts into everything he does, and I already want to hug all of his characters. And so it's going to be absolutely great. I cannot wait. Just give Peter Tomasi you just gave Peter Tomasi an entire family universe. Like, it's going to be wonderful. And then the last one is another Jeff Johns story called Hyde Street, and it's one of those places where everything gets taken in all the wrong ways, and monsters and demons and literal destruction are on every corner. And we're going to see how some of those, it's kind of ironic how that played out for you in the worst way possible. That's going to be kind of your Hyde Street story. So this is the first wave of stories that are coming through Ghost Machine and that new imprint that they're going to have. This is the launch for that. So this is, like I showed you, a bunch of one-shots that are going to lead into the stories you're actually going to get. So if there's something in here that interests you, talk to your local comic shop and let them know which of the series you want. You cannot subscribe to Ghost Machine. Specifically, there's no actual Ghost Machine title. This is just a launch of the publisher. This is a one-shot filled with teasers for things to come. So make sure you tell people by the title that you want that's the one you're interested in. And then lastly, my pick of the week this week, it always is when it comes out, is Zawa issue 3 from Boom Studios and their teen imprint Boombox. And this is done by Michael Dialinis. That's how we say it, right? Okay, good, because I always feel like I'm saying it wrong. Dialinis. Someday I'm going to meet Michael and be like, just say your name and tell me that's actually how you say it. He was the artist on Wind, or I guess is the artist on Wind, and now he has taken on the whole story with Zawa, which you can see has a lot of the beauty of the Wind art that you saw. And it has that same level of heart. It's absolutely amazing. This is the story of a world where food has become scarce and people are only allowed to get what the government gives them, and the mayor of the town is just absolutely evil, and he has decided that they every year will welcome the guardian for this special occasion, and she will bless them with the foods that they want. And these two kids, their dad used to be the chef for the town, and he had a bakery, but then he also worked for the mayor, and he made all the food that the Guardian gave them. Well, he has passed, and now they try to have as much of a bakery as you're allowed to have when you're not really given any fresh foods or anything like that. And they kind of sneak and make a lot of foods they're not supposed to make for people by stealing food from the mayor. At the very first issue, when they go to steal from the mayor's silo, they actually uncover the Guardian herself, Zawa, and they find out who she really is. And we have had already 2 more beautiful issues of Zawa just learning what is actually happening in this world and wanting to find out how she can help. You know, her whole thing is she's never actually seen it, and so she wants to know what the world is like and why they need this savior. And we also learn in this issue some big stuff about the mom and what she's going through and what the mayor is really up to and what's really going on in the town. And I have a feeling I'm going to cry when this is over. I have a feeling it's just going to be that beautiful. And I have a feeling that it's going to end up on my list of my favorite books of 2024 already because of how positive it's probably going to end up being. And I'm going to talk to you all about this book so ungodly much. So just prepare yourself for me to tell you how much I love Zawa, because I love it. And that's why it's my pick of the week. And that's why it has been a pick of the week every time, because the art is amazing. The heart is amazing. Doing your part is amazing, and you're going to learn all of that when you read Zawa. So, all right, we got some other books that came out this week that are in stock. I'm going to fly through them really fast. If you are following along with Gang War from Marvel, your street-level New York heroes, this is Spider-Woman issue 3. As a part of that, this is just a Spider-Woman Gang War story. It's not a new Spider-Woman series that's unconnected, so keep that in mind. We're going to do that last. Power Girl issue 5 is out from DC Comics, and she's got a cat now, and it's super cute. Penguin issue 6 as a part of your Dawn of DC, also out this week. Green Arrow issue 8. I have had so many people constantly loving this Green Arrow series, and I'm so excited about it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is on issue 147. If you didn't hear the news, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Sophie Campbell's run is ending at 150. So you've got 3 issues after this one that's going to have that, and then it is going to relaunch at number 1. So for those of you who have been like, I really want to read Ninja Turtles, but it's 147 issues in, you're about to get a relaunch, and that relaunch will be written by Jason Aaron. All of that was just announced this week, so get ready, Ninja Turtles fans. There's more to come for sure. Immortal Thor issue 6 from Al Ewing and Marvel. The Titans are still on their Beast World tour, and this is the Star City issue. This is the Cully Hamner variant, and it is hilarious, and I love it so much. I love that Black Canary actually being a bird and singing. Amazon's Attack issue 4. This is a part of your Wonder Woman story. If you know, Tom King is writing Wonder Woman right now, and there is a big push to get all of the Amazons out of America, and the Amazons are fighting back, and you're getting that in all of these stories. Resurrection of Magneto issue 1. If you're following the fall of X and the rise of the new story that will come, this is the resurrection of Magneto from everything going on with that. Spawn issue 349 out this week, and you know what that means. February is issue 350 of Spawn, and there are so many covers. It's an oversized issue. It's going to be a big deal. Make sure you tell your local comic shop that they want it, because that order is due technically today or tomorrow, depending on how they order. Gods issue 4. This has been a big series for a lot of people. Jonathan Hickman, who was known for his work on X-Men most recently. The Flash issue 5 from DC. Daredevil Black Armor issue 3, getting some cool Eastman love. Batman the Brave and the Bold issue 9. I know a lot of people keep coming in and saying this is not your usual Batman Brave and the Bold, which is usually, happy and bubbly. This is a very, very dark version of Batman Brave and the Bold. And lastly, this week, Power Pack is back with your original creative team. This is, Louise Simonson and June Bergman actually writing Power Pack, bringing it back almost exactly a year to, we're just a month out from the passing of our friend who was probably the biggest Power Pack fan I've ever known in my entire life. And I know that a big member of our Bat fam, and I know Billy would be so thrilled to know that Power Pack was back. and that the original team is writing it. So my biggest recommendation to everybody who reads Big Two is, in honor of Billy, please go and buy issue 1 of Power Pack and read it and enjoy and have fun. That said, speaking of having fun, don't forget we have our creator meetup this Wednesday at 7 p.m. and story time on Saturday for the little kiddos at 11:30 with an exciting new storytime reader that you're going to have to come and meet. Thank you to everybody who came out this week. It was a wonderful week at Bad City. We had some incredible comics to read, and I can't wait to talk to you about all of the great ones that are coming out this week. It's going to be fun. Thanks for winding down your weekend with me. As always, I will see you next time. Bye, and happy reading.